And welcome back, rugby fans, to Rugby411. As always, I'm your host. My name is Joshua Shibata, and this is our power rankings for Week 11 of the Major League Rugby 2023 season. It was a small week, game-wise, only 4 games being played. First time, there are going to be only 4 games next week as well, so a little bit of a chance for teams to get some much-needed buys, because right now, guys, if you haven't been paying attention to a lot of the MLR games, and I make it a point to watch every game just so that my power rankings are as accurate as possible. A lot of teams have a lot of beat up players. Rosters are running thin. A lot of players are being added from either from academies that are local or from international players that are available. It is, as I've mentioned numerous times, rugby, especially Major League Rugby, is a battle of attrition. It comes down to who has the longer lasting, more healthy team by the end of the season. Not necessarily the most talented team, as certain teams have been struggling simply because of lack of able players. So, with that being said, not a lot of movement in the power rankings this week. So this might go pretty quickly comparatively to our usual power ranking episodes. Also, too, there was a lot of thinking on my part, because I do have a tendency of a policy when a team is on bye, and there were 4 teams on bye this week. I tend not to want to move those teams up or down regardless, because they really didn't do anything. So I don't feel a team should be rewarded for having a bye, nor do I feel a team should be punished for a bye by moving down. So that makes it kind of hard to move teams around. And what ends up happening is teams tend to just not go anywhere unless the win or the loss is really, really significant. And there were really no upsets or any surprises this week, so not a lot of movement. So yeah, like I said, this might be quick. And as always, just a quick review for those of you who've never seen any of my power ranking videos before. These rankings are based purely on what happens on the pitch, not by necessarily your rankings, your win-loss records. So there may be teams that are in the top 4, which we consider the elite teams, that may not be on top of their respective conference pools, and the teams that are on the bottom may not be at the bottom of their conference pools either. It really is all about what you're doing on the pitch and who you're beating currently, not necessarily how great you were at the beginning of the season. Like, there's a certain team, your reigning defending MLR champions, who start off really hot at the beginning of the season, but now are slowly sliding down because, as I mentioned before, they're dealing with a lot of injuries. So, without further ado, let's get through our rankings. Right from the start, there is a little bit of change, because there was something, and I will go a little bit more into detail as we get into the next game, but kind of a correction of my power rankings. I'll go a little bit more in detail later, but let's start with the team that's still on the bottom of the power rankings, the Toronto Arrows, who suffered a pretty lopsided loss to one of the better teams in the league, the Seattle. I'm sorry, they lost to NOLA Gold. Not necessarily one of the better teams in the league, but they actually are doing much, much better. Surprisingly for me, and I have to admit to that. I had NOLA Gold struggling tremendously this season. They've actually been kind of mid-tier, but much better than what they started. But it was a lopsided loss, 24-40. NOLA did a pretty good job. Toronto started kind of hot at the beginning. They were only down 14-10 at the half, but and I gotta take a shout out to the amazing player for NOLA Gold, Jared Adams, 265 pounds, a prop, but he runs like a gazelle. Honestly, if you guys didn't see the highlights, watch the highlights of the NOLA Toronto game, because I'm sure Jared Adams, all 265 pounds of him, is on the highlights, because he is juking and jiving, running like a man half his size. And it is just amazing to watch. It really shows the athletic ability of a rugby player. And just because you're built like a tank doesn't mean you can't run like a Corvette. And that's Jared Adams. So I always tell people what makes a big guy scarier than just being big is a big guy that is fast. And Jared Adams is fast. So shout out to him. He really helped Nola Gold in this victory over Toronto. Toronto scored the first try of the second half, but unfortunately, 4 tries in the second half by Nola Gold pretty much made the game lopsided, and Nola ended up walking away with the victory. As I mentioned before, 24-40. Toronto stays at the bottom. Now, here's where it gets a little interesting. My next ranking, and it's kind of a correction from last week. Got a little bit of feedback that some people didn't feel the Dallas Jackals should have moved up over the Chicago Hounds in the 10 and 11 spot, even though both teams lost. Kind of one-sided games. But, the rugby gods have kind of corrected the course, and because Dallas lost to Seattle, granted, one of the better teams in the league, but they lost 61-19. I felt that loss, regardless that it was to Seattle, I've had to slide Dallas down one spot to number 11 after moving them up a spot the prior week. The rugby gods corrected the power rankings, how it works. Let's go over that game. Again, 61-19. 9 tries scored by the Seattle Seawolves. It is not a record, no sir. That is still held by, I believe it was Nola that went over Toronto, where they scored 12 tries in their victory. 9 is still pretty impressive, pretty lopsided. Dallas, it's kind of funny. Dallas is starting to become a team where it's almost like Toronto. One week they'll be really, really good, and then one week they would just be completely flat. And Dallas was completely flat in this game. I won't go too much into the highlights of Seattle. I'll wait for that when we talk about Seattle. But there was one solid part about Dallas. Tony Molanos, a very talented Argentinian player for Dallas, scored his 3rd try in 2 games. He is becoming a bright spot for the Dallas Jackals. Again, don't know what happened in this game and why Dallas got so trumped by Seattle. Might be because Seattle is one of the better teams, but I really, really felt... I wasn't expecting Dallas to win this game, but I really felt that Dallas had a chance to do much, much better than the score sheet showed, but they were pretty much slaughtered by Seattle. That being said, Chicago Rugby, the Chicago Hounds, the new kids on the block, they had a bye, so they stayed at number 10. They don't move up. They don't move down. Nola Gold, as I mentioned before, with their victory over Toronto, 40-24, didn't feel it was enough to move them up because it was over the bottom-ranked team. I felt, obviously, Nola should have won by almost that much. It's not that impressive beating a team like Toronto, so Nola doesn't move up. Now, team that also doesn't necessarily go down, your reigning defending MLR champions, the New York Ironworkers. They stay at number 8, despite the fact that they lost their game against New England Free Jacks, but the game was only 8-0, so a very, very low-scoring game. It was a very defensive game, a very sloppy game as well. 21 handling errors committed by both sides. It was... I'll be honest with you, it was a kind of a odd game as well. Just it didn't seem like either team really wanted to play, and in the end, New England just kind of etched out a little bit more so. So because of that, I didn't really reward New England, and I didn't punish New York because neither team really did enough to move up or down. You got to give New York a little bit of credit that they hung in with New England. New England is proven to be probably the strongest team in the Eastern Conference. New York, if you haven't seen the news about their team, out of 37 players, 13 of them are injured. They did have Ed Fido come back, top try scorer, but Jack Hyten is still out. There's still quite a few players that are out for New York. So they are still dealing with a lot. Yeah, not much more to say. 8-0 score. It was a kind of a lackluster game. Rugby ATL and Utah are number 7, number 6. Both teams were on bye, so neither team moves up or moves down. And then at the number 5 spot was the before-mentioned New England Free Jacks, winning 8-0. I do have to mention on their side in that game, John Poland, who just came back from injury, unfortunately suffered another injury during the game. I don't know if if the injury is severe, if he'll miss any more time. But John Poland, a very pivotal part of the New England Free Jacks offense. Hate to see him have to go if he got hurt again, especially after he just came back. Moving on from there, big game between Houston and San Diego. I'm sorry. Before we go to that, number 4 spot, Old Glory DC, they also were on a bye, so they don't move up. They don't move down. And again, I didn't feel New England did enough with their 8-0 win over New York to have them jump over Old Glory DC. And again, I feel right about Old Glory sliding down because they didn't play. So I decided it was best just keep Old Glory where they are, keep New England where they are. Nobody moves up, nobody moves down. Now, Houston, San Diego, the game of the week. Surprisingly, not as many tries scored in this game as one would think between the two top try scoring teams in MLR this season. In the end, though it was still a very exciting game, Houston SaberCats unfortunately came on the losing end, losing 16-29. But again, they're losing to, spoiler alert, the top team in the league. Didn't feel, in my power rankings, didn't feel that warranted them sliding. Old Glory didn't play, don't feel like they should go up. New England didn't really beat New York that badly, didn't feel they should go up. So everybody kind of stays put. But in that game, Houston-San Diego, again, only 5 tries scored by both sides. Shout out to Big Joey Taufete, former current Eagles player, former LA Guiltinis player, scored his first try as he joined the Houston SaberCats. Big standout, big addition to the Houston SaberCats side. In the game, it was a lot of San Diego defense. Despite the first half, Houston having the ball for pretty much 95% of that half, San Diego was still keeping the game pretty close. In the end, it was because of tries by Nate Sylvia and then Will Hooley that allowed San Diego to pull off with the win going over the Houston SaberCats. Big shout out, though, to Houston SaberCats Dave Coutier, being the first MLR player this season to score over 100 points. He has 108. He was 4 for 4, perfect off the tee, and scoring 108 points. He is the 3rd fastest according to MLR stats, which if you haven't seen MLR stats, follow them on Instagram. They are a great source of information. If you love numbers like I do, they have all the numbers, tries, tackles, meters run, lopsided score records. They will keep track of everything. According to MLR stats, Dave Coutier going in over 100 points is the 3rd fastest by week 11 in MLR history. So congratulations to Dave Coutier, who again is the top point scorer currently in MLR. Also too, I believe in the game, I forgot to mention, was Seattle, number 2 team. Seattle, big shout out to Rickard Hadding in their victory over Dallas Jackals. Rickard Hadding scored 3 tries in the hat trick. I believe now he is the top try scorer in all of Major League Rugby, overcoming the butcher Dylan Fawcett with those 3 tries. So congratulations to you, Rickard Hadding, having the most tries by any MLR player. It's very, very impressive. Rickard Hadding is an amazing player. His 3 tries in this game against Dallas Jackals definitely contributed to the Dallas Jackals win. And then, of course, as mentioned before, defeating the Houston SaberCats, your number 1 team in the power rankings, still the San Diego Legion. So that's our power rankings. Again, not a lot of movement because not a lot of upsets, not a lot of surprises in the games. You still have the 3 top Eastern Conference teams. Utah was a bye, so didn't really get a chance to move. If I remember correctly, Utah and San Diego have a showdown this coming weekend, so that's going to be a huge game. Maybe a possibility of Utah moving up in the rankings to get into the top 4. Old Glory stays put at number 4 because of being on the bye, but New England is knocking on the doorstep on that one. And then we'll see. These 3 Eastern Conference teams, NOLA, ATL, New York, are definitely fighting to see who will end up in the playoffs. Because remember, guys, in the MLR playoffs, the top 3 teams make it from each conference top team gets a bye. The other two teams go into playoff games. So we have Old Glory, we have New England. One of these three will be fighting for that third spot. And shockingly, it's surprising to see New York being one of the teams that is struggling to fight for that third and final playoff spot. With that being said, let's move on to a couple of our viewers' favorite moments of this video. The Super Brew MLR Rugby411 Pick'em Pool and those results, and we'll pull them up right there. And congratulations, SD Cal guy, getting the golden hat, 8 points. Now, again, he's technically tied for first. MSDRFC 83 Matt also had 8 points. I don't know how they determine who gets the golden hat, because only one person does, but it's SD Cal guy. Technically, this is the third time this season that he's gotten the golden cap. He's got it outright twice, but then he was also tied 1 week for first, but he wasn't given the golden cap. This is the second time that MSDRFC 83 technically has the golden cap as well, because he's tied here. He won it outright a prior week before. So those two are on top with 8 points each. Coming into tie for second place, we have 5 players. Vila Farrell, who's a new name that the first time I mentioned. Congratulations to you. Coming so close to first. Only 0.5 points behind. All J Long, our reigning and defending champion from last year. 7.5 points. CrossFox, Paisan Man, and Jaheigel. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Also with 7.5 points. All of them very close to getting that top spot. It should be mentioned that literally everybody in our pool got every game right. There's only 4 of them, but we all got them right, except for the bottom 3, unfortunately. USA League and Union Rugby fan, my good friend Frisco Flame, and Tex, who unfortunately got the wooden spoon this week. All of them missed at least 1 game in the predictions. So better luck next time, guys. Let's move on to the overall rankings. And still in first and second place, MSDRFC 83 Matt, and right behind him SD Cal guy, because again, they both had the same scores, the same top scores this week, so they're still at top, still only 2 points apart. It really is starting to become a 2-man race between MSDRFC 83 and SD Cal guy, so it's going to be exciting to see who gets to be at the top spot at the end. But still coming from behind, John Hawkins, 68.33. He's only about 3.5 points behind, so that can be changed literally any week. And then right behind him, Jaheigel moved up a spot in fourth, 67.99 points, and then moving down a spot, Harry with 67.16 points. So again, it's anybody's game literally. Even though MSDRFC 83 and SD Cal guy are fighting over that first place spot, but John Hawkins can slip in. Jaheigel, Henry is technically only 4 points away, so it really could change within 1 week, guys. So, as I always tell everybody, don't give up yet. Keep putting in your votes, keep putting in your predictions, because anyone can still take it. All J Long, our reigning defending champion who's been struggling at the bottom, is slowly making his way back up. So, anybody could be at the top at the very end and win themselves their very own MLR rugby t-shirt from their favorite MLR team, courtesy of myself. So, thank you very much as always for watching my video. I do hope you loved it. Let me know what you think about my ranking predictions. Not a lot of movement, but, and like I said, it kind of corrected itself from last week. I know, again, I got a little bit of slack for moving Dallas over Chicago. The rugby gods corrected that, so Dallas is back down to number 11. But let me know what you guys think about it. As always, I appreciate your support watching the videos, and I'll see you on the pitch.